Yeah, and I also cried during the middle of Wicked too.
Oh
I
man.
was crying on the plane. I was crying on the plane. I was crying so much on the plane because Wicked had just come out the 31st, right? The 31st. Wicked just came out on Apple TV and Amazon. And so I
Yeah.
was watching it on the plane. I was just crying and crying. And the girl's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine." And I was just crying. But yeah, Wicked is such a good TV show. I mean, it's such a good
Movie.
movie. Yeah. And then so the good thing was that he didn't have to go on one knee. He just gave me the rings inconspicuously. He didn't have to say, "Will you marry me?" He just turned it around and I just said yes. And then
Wow,
that was
that's
that.
very inconspicuous.
Yeah, he didn't want to make a big scene. He's not
That's
like a scene person.
definitely your style.
What do you mean, my style, like inconspicuous
Yeah.
or
You
unplanned?
like those tender moments to be very inconspicuous.
I think so. Maybe because I'm not really like a public type of person.
You definitely don't do PDA.
Yeah, I'm. Oh, you're 100% right. I am not a PDA person. Like
Yeah.
he always wants to do PDA. Like so we did some PDA. I suck it up and I kissed him. In public. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm kissing in public. The funny thing is that the couple in front of us knew that I was gonna get proposed to before I knew because they saw the other side of the cake. So she was like making this expression, and my boyfriend was all like, "Oh, don't look, don't look at her," and I was like, "Why?" And I was like, "Cause she was just like, I was like, you knew before I knew," and she was like, "Oh yeah, we just had to be quiet, but we couldn't help but react," and I was like, so the couple in front of us kind of played a pivotal part in the whole thing, and she did take a picture. She took our picture, which was great, and it was an unexpected moment. And there's a long story that talks about why he proposed versus me proposing, which I'll probably save for a later date, or everyone can come to the wedding. I don't know when it's gonna be, but everyone's invited.
You invite random strangers. Hey, come to
Yeah,
my
yeah,
wedding.
yeah. All our 10 viewers. I mean, hey, you know what? It's like if they can find this, I'd be
All
like,
of
yeah, you're
our
invited.
one and a half viewers.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so interesting. So does the timer show on your end? Like, how
No.
long the recording is?
Nope. Oh yeah, it does. Under the recording button, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm used to seeing because I'm like, I don't even know how long I've been talking for. I've just been babbling,
It's only about
babbling,
been
babbling.
20 minutes.
Okay, not too bad. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, because I was thinking there's three major stories with the whole proposal and how we got together and why he proposed. And so I'm like, okay, I got to keep it kind of short because we still have the New Year's
I feel
episode.
like I'm hearing a Goosebump story book in real life. Where it goes back and
Why
forth.
Goosebumps?
Because you know how like in the Goosebump book, like the book
The
like
narrator.
it
The
narrated like
narrator.
no, the story like jumps based on your decisions.
Oh, does it? Wait,
The book, yeah.
Goosebumps?
Yeah. So it's
I
like,
didn't
you
know
have
that.
you come to you come to the end of an arc and it asks you, do you do option A, do you option B? And it says like if you do option A, go to page so and so. If you go
Oh,
option
I think you
B,
choose your own adventure.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you choose your own choice, and then so you kind of have to skip through the book based on like what choices you make, and then different parts of the story have different endings.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Like you died, for example. That's an ending.
You did. You did.
Yeah,
That's the ending. You're
yeah.
unalive. That's wild. Man, we talked about like planning for this podcast and obviously not everything's going to plan, but what I find surprising too is that actually there's just so many stories that are tied together with all of these things, and I don't know if it's just because I enjoy talking or if it's because I have the stories to tell, but they're just crazy.
So this was all before Christmas, though.
All before New Year's. It
Oh,
was
New
after
Year's.
Christmas
Oh,
already,
after
yeah.
Christmas.
So this
I
was in
see.
between. Well, because he had to. I mean, I don't know if he had to, but he had to propose before the ending of the year. I mean, that was his kind of like
Well, that was
thing.
yeah. I would say he had to because you were part of it. You were saying like, oh, you were complaining like, oh, you were gonna propose before the end of the year.
Yeah, how many times, right? I complained about
So
it.
yeah, I
So
think he kind of had like a timeline or a deadline to hit.
yeah. There was a lot of things, a lot of pressure coming from me, a lot of like, hey, like when is it gonna happen? And so it happened, and because I'm not getting any younger. I was like, I don't even know what the future holds for us. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously, we could just keep doing the same thing over and over, and it doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah.
But
So after the proposal, I mean, you
went
left
to New
then
York.
to New York.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yep,
that's
I
a
went to New York to Dick Clark's
huge
Rocket Eve
transition.
with Ryan Seacrest. I know, and I didn't even spend New Year's Eve with my
Your
fiance at all.
fiance.
Yep. So I mean, and that was a story in itself, of course, because that Monday. Okay, so this is the timeline of it. That Monday night, I flew out, and I realize this now. I flew out at 8 o'clock, arrived in New York at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then I stayed there till the ball dropped, and then I stayed in New York for maybe 2 to 3 more hours, and then I flew back, 13-hour flight directly from New York to Hawaii.
You flew direct? Wow. Wait,
Flew
what airline
direct.
does a direct flight
So
from Hawaii
Delta
to?
Delta does a direct flight from Virginia. So there's like a quick flight to New York to Virginia, and then Virginia all the
Oh,
way.
you did have a layover. Okay. A
Yeah, but
short
I
stop.
think there also I think Hawaiian might have the direct to New York flight. I don't know.
I see. So
Yeah.
wait, you've arrived in New York on the 31st, and then stayed till the ball drop, like till midnight, right? And then you left afterwards.
Yeah, so I took a red eye Monday, which is the 30th, landed on the
Yeah,
31st,
yeah,
stayed
yeah.
there until the ball dropped because I already knew there's going to be so many activities and a lot of waiting to actually go to see the Rocket Eve and get behind the scenes and all that stuff. And then once it was all over, I knew I was going to be there for 1 or 2 more hours. Originally, I didn't book a hotel. I didn't book a hotel at all because I was thinking I was going to go there, then fly to DC, meet Joe, and then fly back after meeting Joe. So what ended up happening is that I like flew from New York. Oh, sorry, I flew from Hawaii to New York, which was 8 p.m. Arrived there at 2 p.m. just in time to go in line and then make my way into the Rocket Eve because they open at 3 o'clock. And then, dude, it was a wild adventure. Like everyone's feet were sore, legs were sore. I 100%, and I don't mean this offensively. I 100% know what it feels like to be an immigrant now, because like these police officers were just like blocking us from going in, and the police are just so unnegotiating. Like I feel bad. Like Chinese people and Hispanic people are all trying to negotiate to be like let in, and they're like, no, we're not letting you in. We're at capacity. And then I felt like when the Titanic and people were looking for ships. I felt like people were all pushing up against me, and I was like, "Well, this is exactly how the Titanic was when people were trying to just get on these ships, and there's so much panic, and everyone's just like so hectic." Um, but I think this is good advice for anyone who's planning on going to the Dick Clark New Year's Eve with Ryan Seacrest, because honestly, I think the whole time you could have just cut the line. I so I cut the line 2, 3 times, and then I felt guilty, so I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna stay with this group, right? So there was this group of 3 people, two white
Mm-hmm.
kids, and then one white girl, and then they're all just like everyone's making assumptions. This is where I learned, like, if you don't have direction, you have to always ask for clarification.
Right.
And even when you ask for clarification, those people may not know exactly what's going on. Because what ended up happening was everybody was waiting for 6 hours, and they waited so long. And it didn't make sense to me because I was looking at my clock. I was like, wait, it's like 8 o'clock. It's like everything starts at 6. There's no way that this line is not moving. So the line was not moving at all. And I understand why the line wasn't moving. It was because everybody was cutting. So my word of advice for anybody who's planning to go there: the doors open at 3, and do whatever it takes to get into the gated area by 3 o'clock, because that's when it opens. So whether that's cutting the line, whether it's like pretending that like Carrie Underwood or the president, or whatever the case may be, you just try to get into the seating area, then you'll have really good seats. And so it's kind of sad because we were advancing really quickly, and we realized that so this is about like 9 o'clock already, almost 10 o'clock, and people still haven't got let in. And so what ended up happening is the line was advancing extremely fast, and the reason why was because the police officers were telling everyone we're at capacity. So even after that 7-hour wait with the guys, like with my group, and you have to be okay abandoning the people you're around. Like you think that you're all friends and you're like, oh, we've been through this together. And there was this one lady, and she was all like, it's like, oh, you know what? Even if we don't make it to the ball drop, at least we got each other. And I was like, damn it, woman, I don't want to be with you during New Year's Eve. She's like, we make the best of it. Like you're my new family now, and she's just saying that. It's like even if they won't let us in, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm gonna be spending my New Year's with this crazy lady, and so, um, uh, what was great, what made me stick it out because a lot of people had left because it was already raining. Everybody was damp. My clothes,
And I'm sure
my
you
bag.
didn't bring a jacket.
I did bring a jacket,
Oh.
but it wasn't enough. Dude, I was soaked. I was soaked,
What
my feet were soaked, my underwear was soaked, everything was soaked. And so the thing was the venue does not allow umbrellas because if you have an umbrella, you're obstructing the view of everything. So umbrellas not allowed. So this is all stuff I think people need to know ahead of time. Like I watched videos on how to get in and how to do all this stuff, but there is a dark side that people just don't talk about. Like like you're not able to use the bathroom when you're standing in line because you're going to lose your place, and then on top of that you're going to have to expect to stand for x amount of time. Like they have the food carts, but even the food carts, like you don't even want to go to because you're so embarrassed because everybody's just like judging you from your line, and because you've been with these people for 6-7 hours, right? So everyone's like judging you. And so the only thing that kept me in line was this really good looking Mexican guy that was like right next to me. And I was like, oh, I said, as long as I'm with the. So what had happened was, is that the group I was with, they all abandoned ship. They all abandoned ship. Like as soon as they heard that they weren't letting people in and they were at capacity, everyone started jumping shit. Like everyone's like, "Oh, let's go home. Let's do this." Like, this, like, and I was like, "You guys waited so long and you guys decided to leave." And it was so funny because the girl who was next to me, the girl with the group, she was all like, there was this Chinese couple in front of us. She's like, "I would never leave after 5 hours of waiting. Like, that's ridiculous." And she left after 8 hours of leaving. Like, it was like worse. And so luckily I found this Mexican dad and this Mexican I guess college student, right? And we were just like hanging out, and I was like, oh man, this guy's so good looking. I was like, I'm just gonna stick with him. So I stuck with them, and it was so funny because they were speaking Spanish. They only spoke Spanish, and then they're all like talking to each other, trying to get through this gate. I'm like, oh my god, this is probably what it's like at the border. Like everybody's just like speaking Spanish and everyone's speaking Chinese, and they're all trying to get inside there. They're like, let us in, let us in. We've been here for 2 hours, 2 hours. And then the police like, no, we're at capacity. We're not letting anyone in. And at that point, I was like, oh shoot, what should I do? And then this girl was up at the gate with all the cops, and she's like, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. And then so the cops are like, okay, let's let some of these people go to get home. So some of them let them through the gym, let them through the gates, right, into this restaurant, so they could leave the premises, right? And and so they open the gate slightly to let these people leave, and boom, everyone starts pushing, and everyone starts like, and I'm soaking wet, and then there's these puddles now on the ground because there's no sewage, and so I'm like, as they're stepping in water, and then they're pushing us through, and then finally like we got through. um so they were pushing, and I'm holding back this whole group because the cop cuts off the people letting out like right by me, because I'm like, I'm not leaving until you're letting me in, right? I told the cop, I was like, you're letting me in, and he's like, we're not letting anyone in. It's like at capacity. And so like 45 minutes pass, and I've already been standing for at least like 9 hours now, and then they're like, okay, we're gonna let people in, and like the joy on people's faces, like you would not believe. Like I, as soon as I went into the fancy restaurant and I had to dry off, and I wanted to change clothes, but I didn't bring any clothes with me. I only brought a bag. And so they let people in, and people were cheering and excited. And as soon as we like get to to the area, like obviously the event's almost done. It's like 10:30. It's like 11 o'clock. So we get there, and all the acts have performed already, like Rita or all these people, and we're back in a cage. So we're back in this whole line with and even more Mexicans from California, Mexicans from Nebraska, and I'm just like I'm the I'm like I said I'm not Mexican. I don't know what you guys are saying, or Hispanics, right? But I make friends with them, and then this girl snuck in an umbrella, and then she was like, "Oh, come under my umbrella." And then I did ask my fiance if I could kiss someone when the New Year's Eve when the ball dropped, right? And so I just kissed any random person. Whether it was a boy or a girl, I'm like, I don't even care. I'm gonna kiss somebody. So I just kissed a random person. But I mean, he was pretty good looking actually. Oh, he's pretty good looking. But yeah, so anyway, we get into this place, right? I would suggest if you get ushered into this place, make sure you're on the right side, because if you're on the left side, there's speakers, and then there's also awnings that block a lot of the view. So I was like, okay, next time I'm not gonna be there. And then I came just in time to see Carrie Underwood. So as soon as we arrived, like Carrie Underwood took the stage, and that was around like 11:30. I was like, oh, thank God! I was the whole reason why I flew here. This is the whole reason why I flew there. But because it was so late, we are already behind the stage. Like we were like deep, deep, deep in the back of the end of the stage. So I was like, oh, this is crazy. But I took a lot of cool video. I did a good experience. I took a picture of my engagement ring with the tower, and then did the countdown, kissed a random person, and then after that, it was a nightmare trying to leave. Like everyone's like pushing people losing kids. Kids were falling down. Like people were losing. People brought babies. I'm like, why would you bring a baby? Like my bag was super soaking wet, and it was dripping on the baby. And then she's like, "Sir, your bag is dripping on my baby." I'm like, "Fuck, why would you bring a baby here? Like, you're so insane." And so the husband was like, "Oh, you got a problem?" I was like, "No, I don't got a problem. It's just that your baby is like underneath my bag. You got to move your baby." And then so he's like, "Well, you should move your bag." I was like, "Move your baby." And so they ended up moving the baby. Um, so that had happened, and it was crazy. But I think what was cool was like it was so diverse, and like all these people, and they're all excited for this event. Everyone's soaking wet and having a miserable time. Like some people, like this old man collapsed because he's like, I've been standing for like 8 hours. I cannot stand no more. And imagine this. I was on a plane for like 8 hours or 12 hours coming down, and then I had to stand for another like 10 hours, and then I had to fly back for 13 hours sitting down. So my legs were pretty like bust up. I was pretty bust up. But yeah, if you are gonna go to, have you ever been to, um, uh,
New York,
yeah, New York, Square Garden? Is it Madison Square Garden? It's Times Square. Times
Times
Square for the
Square.
New Year.
Yeah.
Have you been? Yeah, have you been Times Square during the New Year?
No, not during the New Year. I haven't been to New York in New
Like,
Year's.
is it on your list? Because they said, oh yeah, this is on everyone's bucket list to
Not
go.
really.
Like, have you ever thought about going?
No.